organisation, Quilliam International. Hello to you, sir. I wonder whether you would say that the threat from the far right has been underestimated while the focus has been on Islamist extremism.
I think absolutely it has been. We've seen that over the last sort of just over a decade now, the biggest threat of terrorism in the West and around the world, in fact, has been Islamist-inspired terrorism. But what we've seen recently, certainly in the UK and around the world, is that there has been an increase in the triple threats, in Islamist terrorism, in far-right terrorism, and we're starting to see pockets of far-left terrorism as well. And this is actually the 9th biggest terrorist attack in the world in terms of people, numbers of people dying, and the joint second in the Western world. So I definitely think that we have underestimated it, and this is a very sad example of what can happen when this threat rather, is underestimated.
Globally networked are the far right?
I mean, we've seen this polarization, as I mentioned, going on for a number of years. And just as people have been organized in terms of Islamist terrorism, we're seeing on social media, we're seeing actually in leaflets being given out, we're seeing in transmedia activities that the far right is actually becoming more and more organized. They're responding, they claim, to an Islamist threat. And they're actually also saying that they're responding to what they call the replacement theory, which is where they feel that their very culture is under threat from, in this case, Muslims now, as opposed to in the 1930s and 40s, it was Jews in Europe, and we saw that 6 million Jews were killed. We're now seeing that the far right is actually blaming Muslims as a scapegoat, saying that their culture is being replaced by mass immigration and by a whole bunch of other things. So they are gaining in traction, and they are becoming better organized.
Yeah, you talk about this replacement theory. Of course, the title of the manifesto by the 28-year-old suspect is The Great Replacement, and much of the dialogue in it referring to Muslims and non-whites as invaders.
Absolutely, and this is a theme. This is something that, because we haven't able to, as a civil society, get to grips properly with the hitherto threat, which was Islamist extremism, Islamist terrorism, we've seen people responding through ignorance, through fear, through a whole bunch of other things, and claiming that, and coming to the realization themselves, which I believe is false, that their very culture is under threat, and that the government and civil society is not responding properly to the Islamist terrorist attack. And so we're going to see a lot more of this. We saw in the US recently, or last year, that there was an attack on a synagogue, and we've seen attacks on synagogues in Europe and other places as well. This is the first, or one of the first, mass attacks that we've seen in a Muslim place of worship, and my fear is that we are going to see more.
There's often a military aspect to the messaging as well, Haras Rafiq, isn't there? One of our correspondents earlier describing them as seeing themselves as soldiers for their cause.
Absolutely. If you look at the iconography that this particular attacker used, it was very much a symbolic of two key things for me. One was the Nazi symbolism that we saw in terms of the black sun and a whole bunch of other things, the 14 words on his rifle. But he also referred in his manifesto and online as well to the Crusaders, to the fact that he and many of these people see themselves as Crusaders fighting as soldiers against Muslims around the world, and this is what it happens to be in this instance. So very much they see themselves as almost, maybe not soldiers of God, but certainly soldiers to a cause, which is white nationalism.
Haras Rafiq from Quilliam International, thank you.